Hello history friends and welcome back to my channel Historical USA. Here we discover the people, places, and events that made America. And in this series we have been deep diving into the causes and the tragic events of the Boston Massacre. And this saga is far from over. In the last episode we talked about the events leading up to that tragic event and the tragic event itself. One of the most famous images of the American Revolution is Paul Revere's engraving of the Boston Massacre. In fact, its actual name is The Bloody Massacre Perpetuated in King Street. But did Paul Revere actually plagiarize this famous work? Let's dig into this history, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the propaganda involved with Paul Revere's work and who he actually may have stolen the idea from. Now, Harry Pelham was an artist and an engraver who also lived in Boston at the time of the massacre. And he was actually the first to create an image depicting this incident. Now, Pelham's engraving is actually titled The Fruits of Arbitrary Power, or the Boston Massacre. And it shows the British soldiers firing into a crowd with a detailed and accurate representation. Now enter Paul Revere, known for his skills as a silversmith and an engraver. And Revere would produce his work, a similar engraving, shortly after Pelham's, titled The Bloody Massacre Perpetuated in King Street. Now, Pelham tells the story that he lent a copy of his engraving to Paul Revere, who copied it and produced his own engraving from it. Now, because Paul Revere's version actually was advertised for sale 3 weeks after the massacre and a week before Pelham's version went on sale, Pelham's version was not as popular. And of course, Paul Revere didn't even credit Pelham for any of the work that he had done. Now, Pelham did feel that Revere had taken advantage of him. But did Paul Revere really copy Henry Pelham's work? Let's take a closer look at the differences and the similarities between these two engravings. We will get back to the video in just 1 second, but today's sponsor is the Historical USA store. Yes, we have launched a historical merch line. Not only can you get Historical USA merch there, but we are launching a few very special and exclusive collections for you guys as well. I'm so excited to announce the Retro Founding Fathers line. Now, this is a nod back to the 80s, not just the 1980s, but the 1780s, when George Washington was president and America had a new constitution and the formation of a new nation. Now, these retro styles are what I call Miami Vice meets Rambo, and I think they're so fun for the summer. So go check them out at the Historical USA store. You can visit the description box below. But what I'm really excited about is a limited edition Boston Massacre t-shirt that we are offering you guys. The Boston Massacre took place 255 years ago. On March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre ignited the flames of the American Revolution, making it a turning point in not just our nation's history, but the fight for independence. So join us in commemorating the courage and sacrifice of those who paved the way for our freedom. This shirt is available now in limited edition at the Historical USA store. So hurry up, because I don't think that this limited edition will last long. Order yours today and keep the spirit of revolution alive. Now back to the video. One of the most notable differences is the level of detail. Pelham's engraving is noted for its precise and carefully crafted details. I mean, he was, after all, a professional painter and half-brother of John Singleton Copley, who had painted several now famous paintings of many of our founders, particularly those in Boston, like Paul Revere himself, Dr. Joseph Warren, Samuel Adams, John Adams, the like. In comparison, I think we can see the difference in level of artistry here. Now, Revere's engraving has a slightly less detail, and he does take some quite artistic liberties to emphasize the brutality of the British soldiers that Pelham does not. Another key difference is clearly the propaganda elements. Now, Revere's engraving has a strong propaganda slant, and why wouldn't it? Paul Revere is one of the known leaders of the patriot group, the Sons of Liberty. And at the time, the Sons of Liberty were really rebelling against the British. So he capitalized on the opportunity to insert whatever propagandist material he could into his engraving. Here are some of the elements that Paul Revere included in his engraving to influence public opinion. Here it looks like the British are all lined up, and there is an officer giving the order to fire, which suggests that the British soldiers are taking the offensive. The colonists are depicted as reacting to the British, even though in reality they were the ones who had attacked the soldiers first. If you notice the faces on the British soldiers, they tend to be sharp and angular, while Americans often have softer, more innocent features. This gives the British a more intimidating vibe. Now, if you look closely, it looks as though some of the soldiers are smirking or even smiling, that they seem to be having a good time with the violence, especially the ones at the far end. The colonists, who were mainly laborers and sailors, dock workers, are all dressed up like gentlemen, raising their status, changing how others may perceive them. Now, in the image, the only two signs you can make out are Butcher's Hall and Customs House, and they're both right above the British soldiers. A woman in the back of the crowd looks really upset. This tapped into the idea of chivalry from the 18th century. It also looks like there is a sniper in the window under the Butcher Hall's sign, possibly a nod to the incident between Ebenezer Richardson and the shooting of young Christopher Snyder. Dogs are often seen as a symbol of loyalty and fidelity. The dog in the picture seems totally unfazed by all the chaos happening behind him and is just looking straight at us. You can even spot Crispus Attucks in the lower left-hand corner. In a lot of the other copies of his print, he isn't seen as African American, but others he is, so we're not necessarily sure how Paul Revere meant to portray him. If he meant to whitewash Crispus Attucks, we don't know. So did Paul Revere copy Henry Pelham's engraving? It's widely believed that Revere did indeed use Pelham's work as a reference for sure, but he added his own touches to create a more powerful and emotional depiction. Now, the act of borrowing really wasn't uncommon in the 18th century. They didn't have the same type of copyright laws that we have now. And both the engravings actually played a significant role in shaping public opinion leading to the American Revolution. I mean, I would remiss if I didn't note that Henry Pelham was an ardent loyalist. And with Paul Revere being a known patriot leader, Revere was actually able to expedite his engravings with the help of his fellow Sons of Liberty members all across the colonies. I mean, Benjamin Eads was the publisher and owner of the Boston Gazette and widely published Revere's engravings. And really what it boiled down to was, if you were a loyalist, you probably preferred Henry Pelham's engraving over Paul Revere's outlandish propaganda. If you were a patriot, you clearly supported Paul Revere's engraving over the more subdued Pelham engraving. Now, Pelham would not last long in America. As soon as the ink was dry on the Declaration of Independence, he hightailed it out of the States and spent the rest of his life in London, where he became more well known as a painter and actually became a teacher teaching others how to paint. So let me know, what do you think? Was Revere's adaptation justified, or should he have given more credit to Pelham's original work? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more history videos just like this. Bye.